notice a few things about it. It's got a lot of carbons, well, 6 carbons, and each one of those carbons has at least one OH stuck onto it. This carbon does, this carbon does, this carbon does, this carbon does. I guess this one doesn't actually have an OH, but it has an oxygen stuck onto it, and that one's an OH. So, very hydrophilic molecule. Partial carbons. Glucose is the most abundant organic molecule on the face of the earth. Think about what that means. It's definitely more abundant than all the other monosaccharides like glucose and glucose and ribose. But it goes beyond that. There's more glucose than there are proteins in the world. There's more glucose than lipids or nucleic acids than any other organic molecule. There's more glucose. And the reason why is that's the exact molecule that plants are making when they do photosynthesis. Whenever you see sunlight shining on any kind of plant, what it's actually cranking out is glucose. Somebody estimated that every year 200 billion tons of glucose is created, new glucose molecules are created on planet Earth from all the photosynthesis going on. So it's just the most, absolutely the most abundant molecule out there in the environment, just billions of tons of it made every year. And so, remember what the plants are making, using this for their cellular fuel energy. They keeps their cells running. And since our cells also use glucose, so when we eat plants, we get that glucose, and our cells use it for energy. That's what keeps you going when you're walking or running or doing some sort of exercise class. It's your cells gobbling up glucose out of your blood. Correct. Just like we saw in the plant earlier. There you go. Your cells gobble up glucose out of your blood. So glucose is your blood sugar. So, oh, I've got no energy, I can't think, I'm low on blood sugar. What it actually means is their glucose levels are low. All right, now, if I were to show you this on a quiz or something and say, write the molecular formula of glucose, you remember how to do that? You total up all the atoms with their atomic symbols and take the subscripts. And you would come out with this. The molecular formula of glucose is C6H12O6. And glucose is going to come up quite a bit this semester, and so that's probably worth memorizing that molecular formula. It rolls right off the tongue, C6H12O6. And notice it has a bit of a pattern to it. The number of carbons is exactly equal to the number of oxygens, and there are twice that number of hydrogens. And what's important about that pattern is that's the defining pattern of all monosaccharides, not just glucose. However many carbons there are, you have the same number of oxygens and twice that many hydrogens. So if it fits that pattern, it's a monosaccharide. If it's a monosaccharide, it fits that pattern. Here's another example. We have ribose monosaccharide. Has 5 carbons, 10 hydrogens, 5 oxygens, C5H10. So here's your question. If I say I just adjusted monosaccharide with 3 carbons, what's its molecular formula? 3, 8, 6, over 3, right? It's got to be, or if I find one that had 7 carbons, it's got to be C7H14. Okay, great. And I guess I should have talked before. Carbohydrate monosaccharides are just loaded with hydroxyl groups. Pretty much every carbon has one, and so that makes them extremely hydrophilic, all those partial charges. They are usually ring-shaped molecules. Glucose is very typical. Notice the corners in the ring are the carbons, except usually there's one corner that's an oxygen instead of a carbon. And typically one carbon sticks out of the ring, like you see right there. Now, since I'm going to be showing glucose so much, I'm just going to show it kind of a hexagon shape like this with the oxygen in the corner shown there, and a little antenna sticking up there represents that one are the monosaccharides storing glucose. And now let's talk about disaccharides. Disaccharides are just a molecule made out of two monosaccharides that have become joined together. And there are several different monosaccharides, and they're distinct is, what makes them distinct is which particular monosaccharides got to become joined together. One of the very common monosaccharides is this, it's called maltose, and it's just simply two glucoses that have been linked together. What sort of reaction do you think links them up? Hydrogen synthesis, right? Bill, dehydration synthesis. If a plant wants to manufacture some maltose disaccharide, it takes two of its glucoses, brings them together, the water molecule pops off, and the remaining oxygen links the two together. You've got maltose. So disaccharides are sugars also. If you eat some maltose, it tastes pretty sweet. It's not, maltose is not the sugar that we have on your kitchen table. That's actually natural sucrose. But nevertheless, maltose is sometimes used for various purposes. In the brewing industry, you probably know that they use malts to give to yeast to make beer. Those malts are high in maltose sugar. I don't know why yeast makes maltose sugar, but I guess they do. And sometimes you hear about other things when you sweeten maltose. There's chocolate malt, which is just a milkshake. I guess it has a lot of maltose in it, malted milk balls, that sort of thing. Another saccharide I want you to know about is sucrose, which is this. It's a glucose monosaccharide linked to a fructose monosaccharide. And again, they're brought together by a dehydration synthesis. One molecule pops off, there's sucrose molecule. So this is table sugar, sugar on the table or in your pantry, the sugar you get from Safeway or whatever. It's all sucrose, and it doesn't matter whether it comes from sugar cane or sugar beet or whatever. It's still sucrose, and it doesn't matter whether it's brown sugar or confectioner sugar or whatever. It's all just sucrose. All right, big ones, the largest ones in the carbohydrate family are the polysaccharides. And for the polysaccharides, they're all glucose polymers. In other words, you don't find any polymers made out of fructose monosaccharide or polymers made out of galactose monosaccharide, but the big ones are all just glucose. Let's see now. Here we go. So this is a typical polysaccharide. Glucose, all linked up together. Now, how many glucoses are there in a polysaccharide? Well, it varies quite a bit. There's no set number. In some cases, it could be hundreds. In some cases, it might even be thousands all linked together. Now, when I'm showing the polysaccharide molecules, I usually just show them as a straight chain like that. And that's pretty much what they are. But just for some truth in advertising here, it's slightly more complicated than that. And sometimes there are branchings, smaller chains of glucose that branch off of the main, but don't let that little detail throw you off. It's all just a bunch of glucoses joined together. That's the important part. All right, now, there are two major types of polysaccharides. One is called starch, and one is called cellulose. They're both made by plants. They're the two types. What I'm showing you here is the starch. Plants just make it as a way of storing up their glucose. When they do photosynthesis, they end up with more glucose than they actually need to fuel their cells at that moment. So the plants are interested in saving it up, and so they link up the glucoses together, just in the same sense that when you buy a book, you don't want separate pages, you want them all stuck together just for convenience sake. Now, human beings have been interested in eating plants, so we want their glucose also. And over historical periods, we've cultivated plants that are especially high in starch. And I guess I mentioned some earlier. Anything that's made out of wheat or oats is going to be very high in starch, so pasta and bread, and I guess some breakfast cereals are also made out of wheat or oats. Potatoes will be really high in starch, corn, rice, carrots, what else is starchy? Yams. Those are some of the major ones I can think of. If you're going on the Atkins diet, don't eat. As I said, as long as you're eating the brown ones, I think that's probably healthy for you. Now, so when you eat any of those starchy foods, your digestive system breaks them down into individual glucose molecules. Your digestive system polymerizes that starch. And so what actually goes into your bloodstream are individual glucose molecules, not the starch molecule. But that being said, your body wants to store up all that glucose that it got from the plant foods. And so your body then repolymerizes the glucose. And the new molecule that your body makes has a different name. It's no longer called starch. It's now called glycogen. And I always thought that was a little bit strange because, it's essentially the same darn molecule as was in a plant. And so why do we call it starch if the plant makes it glycogen? If you make it, if it's really the same, I don't know. I think it's strange. But anyway, if the glucose is polymerized inside an animal, and we're members of the animal kingdom, it's called glycogen. But the plant does the polymerizing. The molecule is called starch. Now, to be honest, there is a slight distinction. Remember, I said in real life, the polysaccharides can be a little bit branched, so you might decide glycogen tends to be a little bit more branched than starch does. Here we go. So here you see part of the glycogen main chain of glucoses, and there's a little branches. But aside from the fact that it tends to be a little bit more branched, it's essentially the same as starch. All right, now, there's a bit I've glossed over right here. In starch, as well as glycogen, all the glucose molecules are in the same orientation. Or, I'm kind of showing them here, they're all